Welcome to Powering Through Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Teresa Sims. I am a coach, an author, wife, mom, survivor, and thriver. Each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I will discuss a special topic that is close to their heart. Together, we will explore the challenges they faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their lives. So get ready to be inspired, motivated, and let's motivate the world through conversation. Did you have to agree to the recording?
Sure.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Welcome to Powering Through Life, and I'm so glad to be back with you today. I have the most amazing guest with me. Her name is Ann C.K. Nickell. She's an author, speaker, life story transformation coach, and first book publishing coach who teaches about living on the upside and finding the message in the mess of life's tragedies to help others overcome setbacks and live their best lives. So from Powering Through Life and me, Ann, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm so glad that we are getting to do this. I really like the topic that you've chosen today to help our listeners power through life. And your topic is overcoming tragedy by living on the upside through faith, gratitude, and mindset. Wow, that's powerful. That is one powerful statement. So with that being mentioned, would you mind sharing with the listeners a bit about your story?
Okay. Well, 4 years ago, I had an allergic reaction to an antibiotic, and it caused my entire body to fill with blood clots. And I lost feeling in both of my legs from the knees down, and I couldn't walk. And when that happened, I didn't know about the blood clots yet. I knew that I couldn't walk, that suddenly I had lost feeling. And I was rushed to the hospital. They ran the CT scan and discovered all of the blood clots. So I then went into an all-night emergency surgery. And thankfully, I survived. And when I woke up, the surgeon explained what had happened and told me about the blood clots, how he had to cut me in both groin areas and go in and start pulling out blood clots. And that he, had to work quick so that none of them burst before he got to them, because that would have been the end of my life if that had happened. But he managed to get them all. And so I was very thankful to hear that. But then he told me that my right leg had gone back to normal, but my left leg had developed compartment syndrome. And so basically my left leg had gotten so swollen that it was about to burst. And therefore he had to perform what they call a double fasciotomy and cut my leg open on either side to relieve the pressure to try to save it. And he explained all this to me, but then told me that what he had done didn't work and they were preparing to amputate.
Oh my goodness.
And so that's what I woke up to. And so from there, thankfully, they needed to do more procedures. They needed to do an angiogram the next day and do another procedure to double check behind my heart and lungs to make sure that they had gotten all of the blood clots. And they also didn't want to do too much to me with what my body had already been through. So thankfully, they waited. And so for 2 days, I lay there and let them do what they needed to do. And I prayed. I thanked God for my life and, for surviving it. And then I asked him for one more miracle. And I asked him to please save my leg. And I prayed and I visualized and I kept picturing myself in the future with all my body parts intact, my body healthy. And on the third day, my leg and foot came back to life and I received my miracle.
Prayer does work, doesn't it?
It does.
Oh, my
Yep.
goodness.
I always say that, as Bob Proctor always said, one person working with God is a majority, and that's all you need. As long as you have that prayer and that faith, it works. And I did. I got my miracle.
Oh my goodness. Now, is there more to this story?
Oh, there's more.
Oh.
Uh, oh yeah,
Okay.
there's more. Because then of course, and we can, talk more as you want to go into it, but because at that point the surgeon then said to me, you might have been better off with a prosthetic because the nerve damage was so bad from him cutting open my leg that he didn't know if or when I would ever get my feeling back. And so he told me, it's going to be hard for you to learn how to walk and you could end up being a gimp the rest of your life.
Oh,
And so it
my.
went from bad news to good news to then hearing that. And then he told me that the wounds themselves were so bad that they would not heal on their own. And he was already bringing in another plastic surgeon to look at my legs and told me I would have to have a skin graft surgery to heal the wounds. And so I had all these hurdles in front of me still to come. And so then proceeded the next, well, 4 years. I'm still recovering a little bit. I'm about 99% back to normal after 4 years.
Well, there's only 1% left to go, and I'll bet you can do it, right?
I'm working on it. I am. It's just a little bit of curvature in my toes from them atrophying because it did take 18 months to get my feeling back.
Right.
And so I'm wearing straighteners every day and doing what I can, some physical therapy movements. So yeah, that's it. Everything else, I got my feeling back. I basically beat all of the prognoses of the doctors. They said it would be hard for me to learn how to walk again. I learned how to walk again in 6 weeks, moving from a walker to a cane and on my own. The wounds did heal on their own. It took 7 long months of wound care treatments and me learning how to change my own bandages multiple times a day and working with wound care on that. And 7 months, my wounds healed on their own. The skin did grow back like they said it wouldn't, and it did. So
Oh,
every
oh
single
my
step,
God.
yeah, every single day was a new miracle for me because everything they said, I just kept praying, I kept visualizing, I kept working on it. I did what the doctor said, I did what the physical therapist said, and just everything continued to get better. It took a long, long time, and there were some very painful days and some rough days, but I made it through. So here I am today, thankfully. So, like I said, 99% back to normal. So that's great.
Oh, that is a miracle, and I'm so glad that we can share this story because I can't imagine what you went through, but how were you able to cope with the unexpected, devastating news? Like, what went on up here, and how did you find the ability within yourself to want to heal, want to continue, and for prayer? I mean, prayer does come easy to a lot of people, but not necessarily at those moments.
Exactly. I kind of joke and tell people that I think part of it was shock because you're laying there getting this news and it doesn't seem real. And first you find out that you're lucky to be alive. You have a surgeon telling you that he's never seen anything like this in all of his years of surgery. So you're hearing that, and then you're hearing they're going to amputate, and it just and initially it doesn't compute. And so I think that was part of it. But like I said, luckily I do have strong faith, and I immediately went to prayer. And so that did help. And another thing I like to share with people is that I also believe in the law of attraction, and I combine it with my faith. I know there are some people who have their faith who doesn't, they don't believe in the law of attraction side of it, but I sort of believe they go together because the law of attraction basically states that what you put out into the universe is what you get back. And to me, that sort of goes along with religion because as long as you are good to other people, people are good to you. I mean, that's just part of what you're supposed to do. And so I had been watching The Secret often whenever I was down, because I had gone through a divorce a couple of years prior. And by watching The Secret and, learning those things about, mindset and talking to myself in the right way, I had already been doing that for a while and it had been helping. And so I think that was part of it too. But really, it was just, that prayer and then telling myself, this is not where God is, this is not where he meant for me to be. I know there's more to this. And so I need to believe, I need to stay strong. and put that good mindset out there, put those good vibes out there into the universe, because I know that's what I'll get back. And that's what I focused on, because I've seen people, and it's horrible, who go through these, awful things. And then immediately when they get the news, and they immediately go down and they accept that fate. And I understand, it makes sense, because it's hard getting that horrible news, especially when it's unexpected and it's a shock. But once you give into it, your mindset and everything else goes along with it.
True.
And so I knew that if I gave into it, it was only going to get worse, and I didn't want to hit that downward spiral. And so that was the big part of it. And with the nurses coming in, doctors coming in, and how they are at the hospital, when especially when you're going through something like that, they're in there like every 10, 15 minutes, and they're in there drawing blood, and they're doing this check, and they're checking my wounds and all these different things. And I just let them come in, do their work. I would smile. I would thank them for helping me. And then I would focus, and I would just concentrate. I'd close my eyes, and I would picture myself in a better place. And that's what I did. I didn't complain to them. I didn't argue with them. I didn't let out my frustrations on them. I knew that none of that would help. There's no good in that. And so that was really it. It was just a matter of pushing myself to stay strong and not give up.
Well, that's fantastic, because obviously they were there to help you and help you
Yes.
through this. Did they provide any emotional support for you? Any doctors, psychological help that could get? No. Okay.
No, I mean,
Oh,
they were very kind, everyone who came in there. But the only time that really happened was after I had gotten the news that my leg and foot came back to life. About a day after that, the head nurse at the hospital came in to talk to me. And she sat down and talked to me about her faith and wanted to hear more, because she truly believed that it was also a miracle. When a lot of doctors don't want to say that, they trust science, they trust medicine, but she was very strong in her faith. And of course, it had gone around the hospital and people had heard about it, because after it happened, I ended up with a room full of surgeons and doctors and nurses, all of these people who were in shock, because many of them had been in there. They had used what they call the Doppler, listening for a pulse. And for 2 days, there had been no pulse in my leg or foot. It was dead. And
geez.
somehow that third day, when that one nurse got that pulse, he heard it. I could see a look on his face. He was freaking out. And like I said, by that afternoon, I had all these different people in there, all taking turns listening to the Doppler, because they just couldn't believe it. And so then that spread around the hospital, and it just, people wanted to come, and they wanted to see, and they wanted to talk to me. And so that right there helped, because I was able to then share and talk about this miracle. And I think just by talking about it, it gave me more good faith, that more good things could come, because we said, if you get started on a downward spiral, that continues. If you get started on an upward, hike or a spiral, that continues. It really is truly what you put out there, you do get back.
That's very true. And that gets proven to us on a daily basis. I don't know how many times a day. So,
Hmm.
how many, like, besides prayer and visualization, how did you manage to stay positive? A lot of self-talk, I would imagine. And
A lot of it was self-talk. Since I'm a writer, I also journal. And so a lot of it was journaling. And thankfully, not long after I went through this, Bob Proctor was putting on with COVID hit right after, not long after. And so, everybody was staying home, but Bob Proctor did a virtual seminar. And just by being in the room, I say, with all of these people and all the positivity, going around, and he constantly promoted journaling. And one thing he always tells people, and I pass this on now, is when you journal first thing every day, you start your day with finding at least 5 things to be grateful for. And then you write a statement saying, I am so happy and grateful now that, and then you continue. And so every day I would do that. I'm so happy and grateful now that. And his lesson is really about thinking about your future, But in that moment, I was using it in my present. I'm so happy and grateful now that I get to keep my leg, that, this, and, that my body is healing every day. And I would just keep throwing these things out there. And on the days when the nerve pain hit, because the nerve pain was the worst pain I've ever had in my life. And so when I complained to the doctors about that, because that one I did complain about because it was awful. Then he told me, he said, well, when that's happening, it means that your nerves are firing, trying to come back. So that's actually a good thing. So if you can focus on that, it'll help you get through. And so that's what I did. I would focus on, instead of the pain, okay, that means my nerves are working. They're trying to come back. They're listening to me. They're listening to my prayers. They're working. And that's what I would focus on. And so that's what I did every day, was the journaling and the prayers. And the prayers weren't just in the morning and just at night, like they, a lot of times are. It was constant, anytime I felt my mindset was going down a little bit, or horrible pain would hit me, I would start praying again. And I would just, talk to God and say, okay, I'm so thankful that you gave me my life. I'm thankful for my leg, but please, can you help me with the pain? Just take away this horrible pain.
Dial it down a little bit, right?
Yeah, just a little. I'm thankful for the nerves firing, but just a little.
It's interesting. I have a really great physiotherapist friend, and she has been in the business for 50 plus years. And she has described pain as a symptom of something. So it's not the actual problem, but it's a symptom that's making you aware of the real initial problem. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because your nerves were firing, they were trying to reconnect. So that was what was trying to happen. And the pain was a symptom of that reaction or action that was happening.
Yes.
Right. But at least you were feeling. And I know it's not pleasant to have pain, any kind of pain, especially that much. But it probably gave you hope in a lot of ways, did it not?
Oh, it did. Because like I said, once I had that in my head that that's what was happening, and I knew, then yes, a horrible pain would hit, but then that's what I would remind myself of. They're firing, they're coming back. And, because I've also learned too that the mind and the body are powerful working together. And so, and that's what I did a lot too with the visualization. When I, because I really, all I could do was sit in a chair for months with my foot up and, change the bandages, and even getting around, like having to get up and maybe go to the restroom, moving more than about 10 feet would make me turn green and I would almost pass out. That's how weak my body was from what it had been through. And so it was rough. So a lot of time was spent just sitting in that chair and thinking. So I also knew I had to keep my mind thinking good thoughts and good things. And so what I would do sometimes, I was staying with my mom. She was kind enough to take me in and help take care of me during that time, since I couldn't do anything for myself. And so we'd be watching TV, and I would sit there and I would aim my vision at one part of my body. And I remember one day, because I was so frustrated that I hadn't gotten any movement back into my feet, and I remember aiming my vision at my big toe, and I just kept concentrating on it for 2 days. And suddenly it moved. I still couldn't feel it, but it moved. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, it works. My brain can tell my body to move, and it's going to move. It's going to work. And so little things like that would happen throughout that would also give me hope. And I just kept doing that. I'd focus on one thing and just keep focusing on it until something worked. And then I'd focus on the next thing. And like I said, when you have all that time to sit there, you might as well be focusing on something good and working with it.
Absolutely, rather than going in the other direction, because that serves absolutely no purpose other than to just put you in a place that you really should not be, and is not healthy. And I mean, a lot of people do go to those places, and a lot of people don't have the knowledge or the skill set or the self-faith to be able to do what you did, to
Mm-hmm.
talk yourself through it, to talk yourself into believing that you were whole and healthy and everything was good and working again. And such powerful tools we have right here. It's
Exactly.
amazing, amazing. So, what kind of a team was involved other than yourself, your faith, and your mom, and then the doctors and nurses around your recovery process?
Well, I'm from Texas, but my family's in Iowa, and my sisters are the ones. I mean, I was here, and my boyfriend offered to help me too, so I had his support. But the poor man was, working, going back to school, trying to get a new degree, you know, doing all these things, and he also found out that his mom had cancer right after I got out of the hospital. So he was going through enough on his own. And when he started talking about possibly dropping out of school to take care of me, that was one of the days I had a little bit of a breakdown. I did not want to do that to him. And so I remember calling my sisters, and that day I was in tears. I said, I've got to figure out what to do, because where I live, there was no assistance to get me back and forth to the hospital for my appointments. A bus could come and pick me up, but I would have to get from my door to the bus on my own. And like I said, I was using a walker at the time. And if I went more than about 10 feet, I was weak. I had to stop and sit. And so there was no assistance to help me. And so my sisters flew down from Iowa to Texas, packed up my Jeep, including me, me in the back seat laying across it, my leg up in the air, and brought me to Iowa to my mom's. And so, thankfully, of course, she was retired. So she took care of me there. And then my sisters, one lived just a few blocks down the road. So she would come over every day. She would help. They would take turns helping me even take a shower, because my leg had to be outside the shower. I mean, all these things, I had to watch bandages. And, she would do my shopping for me. My sister would. I'd order, she'd pick up, bring it home for me. So I constantly had these people there. My brother-in-law would come over, my other sister, my nieces. I mean, I had a big group of family around me. And so they too were, always there and saying, you can do this. When I had like a hard day at physical therapy, because it hurt too, because once you go a couple of months without any movement, your body atrophies. And it took me about 2 months to get feeling back down to my ankle. And that's when I started physical therapy. And so I had a little bit of movement, but their initial process was to get that ankle loosened and moving even more to help me learn how to walk. And so there were days I'd come home from that too, and man, it would hurt. And so, but then my mom would be there, my sister would come over and say, come on, do your exercises. You have to do it. And so they would push me too. And I'd get up and push myself through my exercises. So it wasn't just me, it was having that group, that family and that support, which is awesome. And I feel for those people who don't have that support system, because I know there are some that don't. And I might have been in a worse place without that. And so once again, I'm very, very grateful that I had that.
Yeah, it's family is powerful. And, not necessarily family, but people that will come to your aid when you need them
Mm-hmm.
and at the drop of a hat for whatever reason, and just give. And that's what this world should be like. We should care
Yep.
for each other a lot more and share our gifts. And that's what you're doing. And that's what we're doing by telling your story. We have to motivate this world to come back to basic foundations, I think, of kindness, love, and caring. And I think your story is so powerful.
Thank
So
you.
powerful. So, what other strategies did you incorporate into your life while you were recovering?
Mainly, it was the journaling, the praying, the visualizing, and on rough days, I would also watch The Secret again. Like I said, it's sort of my just go-to when I need a pick-me-up on mindset. I watch The Secret, and so I recommend that to everybody because it really is helpful. Now, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I will tell them skip the first few minutes because it is kind of corny. And so if you get past the first few corny minutes and get into the meat of it, it's powerful. It really, truly is. And so if, you can watch that, it really helps. And so like I said, I watch that sometimes once a month just to get my mindset back on track if I need that help. I mean, I'm getting pretty good at it now because I've been doing it a long time, but even people who have done it a long time, they still need a pick me up once in a while. They still need a refresher on that. Everyone does, because we still have our bad days. We still go through things. You might be working on something and things don't go as planned. You still need that backup. You still need that refresher, that reminder that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. And so I would do a lot of that. And I also started focusing on my dreams, because one of the main things I think that hurt almost worse than the pain of the recovery was realizing that I had almost died before I became a published author. That had been my dream since I was a kid. And because, life gets in the way, we all work, we go to school, we have families, there's so many things that we do that you tend to put off the dream side of it. And so I had put it off, and that realization hit me, and I ended up in tears that day. And I said, okay, God kept me alive. And so I can't waste this life that he gave me, this second chance. And so I started focusing on my goals and my dreams. And that happened to me in August of 2018. And in January of 2019, I finished and published my first book.
Congratulations. And what's the title of it?
It's a historical guide on Fort Worth called The Time Traveler's Guide to Fort Worth. So I knew it was just going to be a fun little book. It wasn't going to be some big bestseller, but I knew I could get it done. And I knew once I got it done, I could finally say, I'm a published author. I realized that dream. And then that was in January. And in March, I published my first poetry book. So within those, like I said, the first few months of the year, I had accomplished that goal, had 2 books out, and started working on other stuff. And so that really helped too, was just focusing on something else other than the pain and the recovery. Focus on the good things. I started planning for, going back home to Texas. My boyfriend was graduating in December, and I knew I wanted to be able to walk, even with a cane. I wanted to be able to walk at his graduation ceremony. I didn't want any assistance getting in and out of that building. And I wanted to do it on my own. And I did it. I was able to go, I made it home in time, and I was able to go to the ceremony. I used a cane to make sure I was okay and didn't fall up and down stairs. But I did it. I was walking on my own. And, so those kind of things, if you have those goals and things to look forward to. And then I had a place I really wanted to go with him once I got back and I was feeling well enough. So I started making plans for that. And, so I worked on mindset, I worked on dreams, I worked on goals, I made plans. And doing those things helps take you out of that moment of just sitting there, only thinking about the recovery, only thinking about the pain. You have to focus your mind on something else.
Absolutely.
And thankfully I, work too. And I luckily work from home. So that saved me on, being able to still do my job. And because my mind was, how can I say this? Just very tired and worn out initially when it happened, to where it was hard to work, even thinking straight and focusing on contracts and things like that. But once I started feeling a little bit better, I also just went back to work. And, I figured I'm sitting here in a chair anyway. I might as well work. I might as well focus on my goals, my dreams. And that's what I did. And of course, I hung out with family members. My birthday was in November. And so they had a big party for me. And one of the things I wanted to do, even though at the time I was still using a walker, I wanted to go bowling at this really cool bowling place they have in Iowa. And it's I forget what it's called, but it's like under the sea. And I love anything to do with the ocean, the beach. I love all of that. And I said, I want to go bowling. I want all of us to get together and go bowling. And they said, are you sure? I mean, you're still using a walker. I said, I can hobble up to the line and throw a ball. I can do that. Mm-hmm. And so, so we did things like that. So everybody agreed. we all got together, we all went bowling, and we had a blast. And, we had fun. I had fun doing what I could at the moment. And
Yeah.
I ignored the things I couldn't do, and I just had fun. And, so I have those memories of, hanging out with the family. Like I said, even though I was using a walker, even though my sister had to push me in my wheelchair to get to the bathroom on the other side of the bowling alley, I mean, we had fun with it. She would run, and, she and my other sister would have a contest, running with me and who could win. So we would just make fun out of different things like that, and, just enjoyed every moment we had together. So
That's fantastic.
those things really do help.
Absolutely. I mean, attach some happy, fun memories to the trials and tribulations that could make you go sideways. But with the happy events included in it, it overpowers the negativity a lot, doesn't it?
It does. It really does help.
Now, I remember you saying that you journaled and you had goals and plans and visions. Did that ever become overwhelming? Because I know sometimes a lot of people, when they're making plans and goals and dreams, if they don't acquire them or achieve them at a certain state or date, they get down on themselves. So what did you do, Anne, if you didn't hit your target?
Well, I have missed my target a lot. So
Okay.
because you can plan all day long, but as I always like to say, and a lot of people do, God sometimes has other plans, and his timing is perfect. Sometimes we don't agree, but if you believe that, then you keep moving forward. And so yes, so I've missed my deadlines. On, like with the books, I hit my deadlines, and it really helps when you do that. I mean, you feel so proud of yourself, achieving that goal. But then afterwards, I was trying to figure out why God had kept me alive. Because, anyone else, I had a friend who had one blood clot and died because of it. And I had an entire body, and somehow I survived. And so it made me even more thankful knowing I had survived that. And then while I was recuperating, one of my mom's friends, a mechanic, he had come in to check my car for me because it had been sitting for a while. And he took it and changed the oil for me, and, did a checkup on it. And when he came back, he sat down and just wanted to hear more about what had happened. And after he heard my story, he said to me, God pulls from the pit, not the pulpit. And that was the first time someone had said something to me that led me to a new goal of sharing my story and finding a way to help other people. That God had pulled me from that fire for a reason. And
And
so
do you know what that reason is?
I need to share my story. And just as I said, when you did my intro, I need to help others overcome their setbacks, their tragedies, so that they can move on and live beautiful lives. Because one thing I learned through it too, we are not guaranteed tomorrow. And, you need to enjoy every minute of this life that you have while you're here. And if you have those goals and dreams, follow them. And like I said, if you don't hit the deadline, it's okay. As long as you're still here, you still have time. So that's what I remind myself at the times when I don't hit the goals, I don't hit the deadlines, because this isn't the first thing I've tried in these past 4 years. I've tried sharing my story in other ways. I started a blog. I signed up for a course to learn how to do it properly, how to get, people's attention, because it wasn't really to make the money from it. I wanted to get, people paying attention so I could reach those people and help them. And nothing I was doing was working right. I was doing everything they told me to do. And I maybe got a couple of hits on the blog posts and maybe some responses. And then you would look at their blog, the people teaching it, and you'd see their thousands upon thousands of followers. I'm like, how did they do this? Why isn't it working for me? And, so you do then get down sometimes and think, okay, maybe that's not what I was supposed to do. So maybe I need to try this. And so sometimes your plans can change too, because you realize maybe that first big idea maybe wasn't the right idea, or if you do still think it's the right idea, don't give up. Maybe the deadline just needs to be set out another 6 months to a year. Maybe you need more time to learn a little bit more about the technology behind all of it. I mean, there's always something you can then focus on to keep moving on with the goal, because my goal, the main goal of helping other people, hasn't changed. Maybe the way I'm doing it has, but so if you can focus on why you're doing what you're doing, what is the goal? What's the why behind it? And so if the initial goal isn't met, okay, you can still have your why, you can still have this dream, but maybe there's just another path that you need to follow. Maybe there's something else you need to learn to get you there. But the main thing is just not to give up. And so that's what I've been doing for 4 years now is, finding things like this, finding wonderful people like you who have, podcasts, who, your goal is also to share and help people. And so meeting people like you and getting a chance to share my story, maybe that's what I'm, meant to do. Maybe I'm meant to do these things. So that's what helps, is like, even if I don't meet the goal, okay, I can have a new goal.
Well, yeah, and I was just thinking while you were talking about that is the why doesn't change. Our mission for ourselves or our path doesn't change. It's the how that changes. And we
Exactly.
have to be flexible and adaptable and I guess moldable to whatever the greater need is or the greater plan is. Would you agree?
Oh, I totally agree. Yep. And
You
as
know,
long as I've kept that why, like you said, and that's the other thing that they talk about in The Secret. Like I said, I can talk about that movie all day long because it really is helpful.
yes,
But one of the other things they talk about is that if you have that dream and you have, like you said, that why, and you take the first actionable step towards that goal or dream, the rest of the way will be shown to you. You don't have to know, you don't have to see the entire staircase. You don't need to see the entire road. If your headlights are only showing you the next bend, make it to the next bend. Get that far, because if you take that step, the next step will appear. But you have to work on it. And the thing I think that gets people, and has even gotten me, is sometimes that next step is not what you expected. You can see the beginning and you can see the end goal where you want to be, and you think what those middle steps are going to be, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's something completely off the wall, and sometimes it takes you completely out of your comfort zone. But you need to take it. If it's there, if that opportunity's there, take it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Either it doesn't work, or people don't like it. Who cares? You
you
tried
mess
something
up.
new. If you
Yeah,
mess up, you start over. If you fall down, you get back up.
exactly.
And that's the main thing to remember, is that I think people are too hard on themselves, especially nowadays with all the social media and seeing all these, perfect people out there, and everything, looks gorgeous. I mean, look at my hair today. My hair was not happy today in this Texas heat. So, I put on my cute hat and I move on.
You look
And so,
fabulous. And
thank you.
yes, it shouldn't matter, but it does at the same time. As long as you feel good within yourself,
Yep,
who cares?
exactly. It's you. You need to be doing what's right for you. And well, I say that with the other part of it, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. Because I think a
Exactly.
lot of people say that nowadays too. The new thing is to just do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, but they don't think about the consequences or that it could hurt somebody else. So that's what I say. As long as you feel good and you're doing what makes you happy and you're not hurting anybody else, then, go forward with it. And especially if you know how to help other people with the goal of the dream, definitely move forward, because we need more of that.
Absolutely. So, Anne, if I were to ask you what 3 tips you would give to our listeners today on how to power through, what would you say?
First, faith. And that faith may look different to different people, but faith. And a lot of that faith is also in yourself, in the higher power. For me, it's God, but also faith in yourself. You have to believe that what you see can happen will happen. Have that faith. Have gratitude. Focus on gratitude every day, because the more you can think of to be grateful for, the more things you will get in your life to be grateful for. I mean, it does come back to you tenfold. So whatever you have that something to be grateful for, remember it every single day. And then the other thing is what I actually focus on in my main talk, is the upside. And I started telling people about this. I call it the upside, that I believe everything in life has two sides to it. We have day and night, light and dark, young and old, even the two sides to a coin, heads and tails. Everything has two sides. So for every downside, there's also an upside. So for everything that happens, there's something good in it. And if you can work on your mindset and focus on even one good thing in that situation, no matter how bad the situation is, focus all of your attention on that one good thing, then you'll see more good, and you will end up finding that message in the mess. It will come to you as long as you're focusing on the upside. And then that's when you can move forward. And that's what I started focusing on, was, focusing on that. Because when people, would ask me about this story, just like we're talking about, it hit me one day. I realized that I can tell this same exact story in two different ways. I could say, I had this horrible allergic reaction, my entire body filled with blood clots, and I almost died. Or I could say, oh my gosh, I had this reaction and my body filled with blood clots, but I was given a miracle and I survived. And then the other side, oh my gosh, my, leg, developed compartment syndrome and the doctors were going to amputate. Well, the doctors didn't amputate. Look, I had another miracle. My leg came back to life. So if, that same story can be told in two different ways. I could tell it from the viewpoint of, I'm just down and I'm out and look what happened to me. I'm only focusing on the bad. Or I can tell that exact same story like I've been doing and talk about the good. Talk about the fact that I am alive, that I do have my leg, that I am 99% back to normal, that it led me to a new purpose in my life of helping other people. Focus on that, find that good. And if you do that, the whole world opens up to you. I honestly believe that.
I totally agree with that, Anne. And that is the positivity of powering through life. And that's what we're all about. And that's why we're back here and we're sharing your incredible story. And we're almost running out of time. So I will, can you quickly tell us how the listeners can get in touch with you? I will include all your social media links, but if you want to quickly go ahead, please share.
Okay. Sure. The main way is to go to my website, which is AnnCKNickell.com. So it's AnnCKNickell.com.
That's perfect. And like I say, I will share everything that you have given me and we will get this out to the world. And I really, really want to thank you for being my first guest back on Powering Through Life. This is just what everybody needed to hear. I needed to hear it, Anne. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm happy you chose me to be your first one coming back.
It's just the way it was supposed to happen. It was the plan.
Yes,
Absolutely.
It was.
It was. So thank you for being a fabulous guest on Powering Through Life. And listeners, I will post all of Anne's social media contact information. Get in touch with this woman. She is amazing. And I am going to keep in touch with her because there are great things going to happen. So we will see you all again very soon. Thank you for listening to Powering Through Life, where we explore life's challenges and learn valuable insights from my guests about how they have powered through their lives to survive and thrive. We can learn incredible lessons by sharing and motivating the world through conversation. You can access all of the Powering Through Life episodes on my website, teresasims.com, YouTube, Facebook, and Spreaker. So join us again next time for another inspiring conversation.